everyone, and welcome to another episode of One Pittsfield with Mayor Marchetti. Today we are at the Health Department and we'll be talking with Andy Canby, our director, shortly. But first, it's been a while since our last episode, and so we have a lot to catch up on. The City Council is on their summer schedule, and there's only one meeting a month. So let's dive right into all the stuff we need to catch up on. So first, let's talk about the historic day for the City of Pittsfield on Saturday, July 27th, when we welcomed Vice President Harris to the City of Pittsfield. This day was not possible without multiple law enforcement agencies such as Pittsfield Police, the Sheriff's Department, State Police, all our counterparts up and down Berkshire County, Pittsfield Fire, County Ambulance, Action Ambulance, Berkshire Health Systems, and MEMA. It was a great event, and thank you for everyone for their work. It was a safe and successful event. I attended the monthly DPI board meeting. I toured Arrowhead, the historic home of Herman Melville, and attended a performance of Poor Herman at Arrowhead. I spent the afternoon with the Senator Elizabeth Warren as we toured Pittsfield, visiting Volunteers in Medicine, the Soldier On, and the Berkshire Black Economic Council. And Senator Warren was here to talk about housing, small business entrepreneurship, and veteran housing, and immigrant medicine. I attended the monthly Mayor's Association meeting in Newburyport, and I always find those meetings to be very informative as I get to meet up with other mayors across the Commonwealth to discuss issues, so that we're a pretty small state and we share some of the same issues. So it's always nice to be able to connect with them. And I toured the newest branch of Lee Bank on South Street. I attended several community events, the Berkshire Pathways Open House, Mountain Day at Bosquet with great music and food, the celebration of Black Voices, and provided them with a proclamation and a flag raising, Choices Mentoring Initiative anniversary celebration, the screening of Violence Prevention and Violence Protection project, and a project with the youth from Pittsfield, and I'll be meeting with those youth in the coming weeks to make sure that they have a voice. I picked up some delicious meals at the St. Joe Polish Picnic, saw a wonderful performance of Boeing Boeing at Barrington Stage, and attended their annual gala. Participated in the Korean War Armistice Memorial Ceremony. I went to the Berkshire Harm Reduction Open House. Went and supported our Pittsfield Police Department at the National Night Out in the Common. And then also attended, we're taping on Friday, so last night's Black Voices Matter Festival, where I read the proclamation once again and declared August 4th through 10th as Celebration of Black Voices Week. Let's do a couple of acknowledgments before we move on to the City Council agenda. So we had the privilege of cutting the ribbon at Rare 297 at Hotel on North. We can give a shout out to Sabaritas, who's in the process of moving to a downtown space on McKay Street, formerly by Trattoria Rustica. Berkshire United Way is celebrating their 100th anniversary. Barrington Stage is celebrating their 30th anniversary. And downtown Pittsfield recently moved from their offices at Dunham Mall to 431 North Street, and will be celebrating their grand opening coming up on September 12th at 10 a.m. As I've said at all my shows, if your business or organization is celebrating a milestone, we'd like to hear about it so that we can share it with the public via this show. You can call my office at 499-9321, or you can email mayor's office at cityofpittsfield.org with details so that we can recognize your event and an upcoming program. Now let's get to the council agenda. The City Council is on their summer schedule for meetings, and so they only met once in July and once in August. On the agenda for the August 13th council meeting, I will be declaring August 31st as Overdose Awareness Day, and then there are several appointments. In the fire department, we will be appointing James Zeider as the administrative deputy, Robert Leary, Jacob Brown, and Matthew Risley as captains, and Eric Kirchner, Troy Zeider, and Brandon Bailey as lieutenants. We'll be appointing 4 individuals to the Cultural Council: William Garrison, Wendy Ronis, Mary Kay McCluskey, and Nancy Gilbert. We'll be appointing Tisha Scott to the Sister Cities Commission. We'll be welcoming back our former Chief Information Officer, Kevin Zawistowski, as I will be appointing him once again to return as the Chief Information Officer. And Jim Clark will be transitioning as his role as the Director of Council on Aging to his previous role as Director of Veteran Services. And we will be starting a search shortly for a new Director of the Council on Aging. On the grant front, we have many grants that are before the City Council at this coming meeting. So there's $342,810 from the FAA to fund the design and permit phase of Taxiway A reconstruction project at the airport. $235,000 from Mass DOT for Shared Streets and Spaces program for the West Street Streetscape project, which will include 6 rapid flashing beacons in the crosswalks. $100,000 from the National Endowment of the Arts to support art-based engagement and design for community-driven housing in the West Side neighborhood. $24,234 from the Stanton Foundation to fund the paving of the parking lot at the dog park located at Burbank Park. $275,000 from the Mass Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the MVP program for Uncommit Brook restoration. 3 grants from the Mass Executive Office of Public Safety and Security State 911 Department. $27,073.79 for fiscal year State 911 Department Emergency Medical Dispatch Grant. $233,940 for fiscal year State 911 Department Support and Incentive Grant, and $16,600.32 FY25 State 911 Department Training Grant. There are some communications provided to the city solicitor or to the city council. The first is a ground lease extension amendment with Ring Squared APC LLC within the Pittsfield watershed area of Washington Mountain Road. That is a cell tower that has been purchased by another company, and we're just going to extend the lease. 2 requests for upgraded positions, one for the fire chief and one for the city solicitor. And as some folks may or may not know, our city solicitor, who has been with us for a number of years, has announced his intention to retire. So we're going to begin the process of looking for a city solicitor internally or doing an RFP to find another company that will handle our legal affairs. And then I have a request to create a new position within the Department of Public Services and Utilities. I'll be looking to create a deputy commissioner who will be able to assist in the day-to-day operations of the DPS DPU. Originally, I had hired a consultant to help me decide whether or not we needed to go back to the way that things used to be, where we had a commissioner for Department of Public Utilities and Public Works. We have decided that it would work best with one commissioner and a deputy commissioner. Last but not least, there's a traffic order allowing parking on the west side of Goodrich Street. So that kind of wraps up where we're at for the upcoming city council meeting. And so now, it's been a busy month for us so far. I want to now turn to my guest today, Andy Canby. Andy currently serves as the director of the Pittsfield Health Department. Andy, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to be here.
So before we start talking about your work and team, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey of becoming the director of public health?
Right. So I started here 10 years ago. I've been in Berkshire County since I was 5. I moved from New York City. So when I was in Pittsfield, I was looking for a career, and I started off as the nuisance control officer with the health department, which was an entry position inspector that was doing interior property maintenance. And I found a good environment in the workplace. I found that it fostered teamwork, that it fostered growth, which was really important to me because I was looking for a career. I was looking for something that I could go on a path and continue. So I started, attending trainings. I started to work with different conferences, and I was slowly able to move up to be a sanitarian. And the sanitarian is an inspector that does the food service inspections, that does the housing inspections. And again, continuing with that, became a senior sanitarian, which is a supervisory position. And that's really where I found kind of my calling, where I was able to work on permits with businesses that, such as a food establishment, and bring what they had their vision of a restaurant to light. So in seeing that rewarding phase when they open up their restaurant. So that's from there I continued on with more trainings, went back to school. And, I always had visions of being the director. I didn't think it would happen so soon, but the door opened up and I took on that opportunity. And, it's been about 2 full years I started out as the intern for a couple months, and then I've been the director for 2 years. Mm-hmm.
So when that opportunity arose for you to become the director, tell me what thoughts you had in your mind about what you envisioned the future of the health department to be.
So it was right probably towards the end of the COVID pandemic, as we were going through 2021, 2022. So there was a lot of momentum with public health. So I wanted to continue that momentum because I saw how we were now in the public eye as far as the communicable disease investigations and the everything that we did behind the scenes was now in the light. So I wanted to continue that and use all the resources that were available to public health at that time. And so we started to build a social service side of it with a community health worker and a social worker that came on after in 2023. And so the vision of the department was community outreach. Our role is to improve community health. How can we do that being in the office all the time? Because historically, we've been more of an inspectional service enforcement side, but now can we go out there and be in the community and actually listen to our residents and see what the needs are? So that's the vision now, to continue. And it's great because that's kind of like the vision of your administration, of being out there. And I see that with other departments as well. So it's, how can we be there to serve the residents? How can we be there next to them at the same time?
Well, and I think as I took office, and we talked about it during the campaign, that we needed some form of advisory committee, task force, call it what you wanted to call it, to really start to dive down into what I'll call some of the heart of social service agency issues. And we know that we have an issue with a homeless population. We know we have an issue with a substance use crisis. We know we have an issue with a mental health crisis. And we're not unique, right? Pittsfield is a small city, so we have our small city challenges, but a number of larger cities are also going through this. So some of what we're experiencing are being experienced across the nation. And, for me, it was, how can you help people if you don't meet them where they're at, right? If you have someone who's out on the street, they're not going to know that, hey, Andy Canby's the director of public health and his office is at 100 North Street. And you need to actually climb the stairs and go through a maze to find his office to be able to say, hey, how do I get help? And so, I think it's important that we do that. And so let's talk a little bit more about those positions and, what they're doing. I know that they've held some office hours, if you will, at the senior center, and there was some time that they were at the library. So let's just talk about, if someone was out there, how they could get in touch with either one of these two individuals.
Right. So with the community health worker, we were lucky to hire Gabby DeMassimo. She was right out of college with a public health degree and also a Pittsfield native. And it was great to have her back in her hometown. And obviously she has a dedication to the work. And same with Maria Arias, who's our social worker. Again, has worked with different agencies, bilingual, both are great resources. So what they do is they're out there at the senior center. They have a schedule with the library. They were there for a year or so, and we're moving on to finding other locations that we can build a relationship. That's what we've been doing. As you mentioned, we have crises that we're dealing with, and we're not unique, but we need to have a seat at the table, and that's what these roles do. They are not only interacting and building a relationship with our residents that are struggling, but they're also at the table with stakeholders, with the agencies that, have the biggest, their role is to address this, but, we want to be a supportive service to them, and then also be that bridge to the residents to say, hey, did you know about this agency that's here? Did you know about what these hours are? So being out there in the community is what's critical, and we'll continue to do with those roles.
And I think, from my point of view, this isn't a knock on any of the social service agencies, but if we know that we have this crisis, why is it up to all the agencies to have to solve the problem? Where is the city involvement? Where is, like the Department of Public Health, and where's the mayor's office, and, where's our PPD and where's our PFD? Because as we're the first responders to some of these issues, the training of a police officer is much different today than back then, and the roles and responsibilities that may be needed. So I think it's important that the city comes to the table and says, hey, we know that we're in a crisis, and we know that you can't solve this by yourself, and so we want to be a partner, we want to be a player. And so I'm happy to see those roles, and hopefully we joked before we went on the air that you're supposed to say, I want to increase my budget by 30%. We need to look at ways and how to do that, especially to fortify these programs to add to some of the individuals. And as you know, I keep talking about first responders that the city needs to hire, and we need to find a way to bring those folks on board. And part of it is maybe they work for the police department, but maybe part of it is that they work for your department as well, because what role are they playing, right? And so outreach in regards to substance use and mental health kind of fall in your realm of work, not necessarily that of the PPD, but sometimes they're tied together. And so we'll see how that unfolds. So let's talk, you did a pretty, really great job of saying, hey, I started in the department, I worked my way through. So you kind of almost touched on most of the positions that you have within the department. But let's talk about what your department is doing, during the summer months as we continue to forge through the summer.
Right, so during the summer, we do a testing of the public beaches, public waters, public pools. So we do about 11 weekly samples of what we know are public spaces for bathing. And we bring back those samples, we analyze it at our in-house lab, and then if, the next day we're able to say, is there a bacteria, there's a threshold for the E. coli, so is this beach safe to swim in? And if not, we're ready to close down a beach. And you might have seen in the surrounding communities, some beaches have closed and then they get reopened. So we're constantly monitoring that, again, to protect everyone, to the residents, to make sure they have a safe summer, they're not getting sick in the waters. We also do code enforcement with exterior property maintenance. We deal with challenges with that, as far as, I wish it was as easy as going out there and just mowing down a lawn, but unfortunately it's not that easy, because a property owner has their property rights, and they're not, we're not able to just go on their land and trespass there and do what we want to do for that.
So let's just talk about that for a few minutes, because we've had some properties that we don't have to technically call out during the show, but that we know that have been troublesome, and I'll call this one out just because it's across the street from me, and I've reported it a number of times through PitchSmart, and at this stage of the game, I don't have to worry about the lawn being mowed because it's dead. So now I have dead grass blowing in the breeze rather than live grass. But let's talk about the process, right? I call you up and I say, hey, Mr. Canby, I have this problem with my neighbor across the street that they're not mowing their lawn, or they've started to create a junkyard in their backyard, and I see rats running around. It isn't as simple as knock on the door, please do this, they fix it, and you walk away. I mean, hopefully we have a larger percentage of that does happen, but let's talk about the process. So it's my property, I haven't mowed my lawn in 6 months. What's the process? Someone complains about me. Let's just talk about the process, because I think folks at home just think, hey, I called and you're supposed to fix it right away.
Yeah, we start with having that initial conversation, making sure that they understand the rules and regulations that are in the city. And then, we get the pushback of, they might not have resources. They might not have a lawnmower there. It might be broken for the season. They might be elderly who can't hire someone to do either, or even in the winter to shovel. So working through those challenges of them and the property owner saying, I want to get this done, but I don't have those resources. But we, again, we try to identify, hey, can we push you this, can we direct you to another possibility to make sure that we correct this problem? And then there's some property owners that just refuse, and then we have to build a case where we actually visually have to see the impact to the residents, see the rats, see an indication that there's an infestation. And so that's where it takes a process. It takes a process, and then we work with our city solicitor's office to create an affidavit to say we've observed these conditions that deem a public nuisance. Again, to deem a public nuisance is a big role to say that, it's got to have the evidence, it's got to have an actual tangible saying that this is what creates this big nuisance. So once we get to that court appointment, now it's up to the judge to issue an order to say, hey, clean up your yard or do what you need to do. And even then still, if they refuse to do it, it's not a criminal situation where they're going to be taken off to jail if they don't do it. It's mostly a situation where we're dealing with city ordinances. So and then even then the hearing will continue, and behind that we're still doing fines. We're doing fines that attach to the property, but again, if they don't have the resources to fix their lawnmower, they most likely won't have the resources to pay the fines. So.
And I think that's important to have that conversation, because if you're fining me on a weekly basis, and let's just say I can afford to pay the fines, as long as I'm paying my fines,
Right.
Nothing really happens. And if you can't afford to pay your fines, then it'll only complicate things when those fines venture their ways to other places. But I think that folks at home have to understand that in some cases it's simple, right? And in my experience as both a city councilor and as mayor, if I put in something to PitSmart that says there's a mattress and a couch and 5 bags of garbage out in front of a house and it's been there for a week and hasn't been taken care of, usually one notification to that, the homeowner cleans it up and finds a way to get rid of the stuff. And that's a simple case.
Right.
And I think in a lot of cases, you tell someone they need to mow their lawn, they pay the $25 fine, they mow their lawn and they move on. But it's the extreme cases where...
Right. I would say that 95% of our residents comply, and we appreciate that. The department appreciates that, the city appreciates that. We need to keep our city clean. So we appreciate the residents for doing that, and then the challenges that we will continue to deal with. We'll continue to work with it. We won't give up, and hopefully we can get there.
So we talked about summer months. Let's talk about the fall. The fall becomes the time of year where we all start panicking about flu, and we may start to panic about COVID, depending upon, what the numbers are like. You hear rumor mills that COVID is on the incline again nationwide.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the fall and what folks can expect from your office.
Right. So we constantly keep surveillance on COVID and any communicable disease. COVID has its spurts throughout the seasons, and right now we are in those that rise of the end of the summer that we see each year. The pattern happens. So, we have ordered more at-home test kits to have available for our residents, so that should be arriving next week. We don't want to place orders ahead of time because they expire, so we gotta, we have to align it with the seasons. And then flu clinics are going to be big for the health department this year. We've identified in our local data that we have a hesitancy upon the Hispanic and Black population. So we're going to be working with our Hispanic population about understanding, what the hesitancy is, building that trust to make sure that they're protected for the fall season, because, the fall season, a flu can hit you hard. It can hit you hard, and the best way to do is protect yourself. So we're going to be focusing a lot on that and holding some public clinics. So we'll be working with your office too to get that message across of how we can, when can we hold these, and making sure we get everybody invited to those.
And will those be free to the public?
Yes, we're working with ARPA resources to provide that free to the residents.
And they'll be maybe in City Hall, maybe
City Hall. We're going to partner
different...
with different agencies throughout the city that have a connection with our Hispanic community, and it's going to be Hispanic Heritage Month next month too. So we're going to be working off that, and we're going to be providing that resource. I think it's important, as we mentioned before, what can the health department do to serve our residents? What service can we provide? And that's what we want to build on and continue to build on.
I love it when I hear a department head tell me it's all about getting out into the community, because I think that we can see a change in, the last couple of months. The more that we're out, the more we can gain trust with the public and do things. So before we conclude today, is there anything that you think the public may not know about what your department provides that you want to share with the folks?
A program that we have offered for many years is called the pre-tenancy program, and that offers a full inspection for a landlord, for our department, for one of our inspectors to go out there during a vacancy and do a full inspection of the property. From top to bottom, outside and inside, and we give a certificate to the landlord that says you're in compliance of the sanitary code, and it's a win-win for the landlord, because now they're renting out a property that is in compliance, and the occupant moves into a healthy apartment. So it doesn't get used, and it's a free service. And any new landlords or old landlords that are out there, definitely take advantage of this program. Just give us a call at the department, 413-499-9411, and we can have an inspector out there to come out and do an inspection. We normally, if we find issues, we do give a little checklist. It's not a formal order that says, we'll come back out, and until you get this right, we'll support that. And then you have that certificate that says that your apartment is compliant. So that's something that we really want to have out there in the city.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course, yeah.
You're on a long list of department heads that have already been here, and I think it's important for the community to just share in some dialogue of what the departments do. And I think it's out there, but I also think there's a lot of misconceptions about our departments and what we do. And so we talked a lot about how the health department is helpful to people rather than the enforcers and the ones that are, putting the nasty notice on your door that you must do this. And so I think it's important for the public to know these things. Folks, we're winding down. So I want to thank you for joining me once again for another episode of One Pittsfield with Mayor Marchetti. Next show, which will be before the September 1st meeting in September, so I think it's September 11th. I'm guessing off the top of my head, but it's around that time. We're going to take a little bit of a break from what we've been doing and sharing various departments with you, and we are going to dedicate the next show completely to the new trash collection system. So as you may be hearing rumblings or reading recently in the newspaper, we are going to attack this education plan 100% full throttle to make sure that the folks in Pittsfield understand what's coming their way. We know that the success of this program is going to be on the education that we put out in the forefront. And so next show will be completely dedicated to the new trash collection process, which will be starting days after that next show. So folks can start to look for their toters coming mid-September for recycling, and then it will just continue to spiral from there about what's happening. So for now, thanks for joining, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.